I brought this up yesterday. There will be two things that Israel could use potentially to not abide by a full-blown withdrawal or not abide by a permanent ceasefire. And those two things are, number one, disarmament, complete disarmament. They'll say, oh, they haven't done a complete disarmament. And number two, they'll claim that Hamas is incapable of bringing all of the we're going to move on, or not move on necessarily, but we're going to move back to the issue at hand. We were talking about the American perspectives shifting on Israel.
Out by age within the Republican ranks, who Republicans sympathize more with. You see a massive, huge age divide. Those 50 and over, what we see amongst Republicans is they sympathize more with the Israelis by 66 points. But look at the voters under the age of 50. They do sympathize with the Israelis, but just by 25 points. We're talking about a 40-point difference, with the youngest Republicans being far more sympathetic to the Palestinian position than older Republicans are.
That's a huge gap right there. Let's just say that.
That is a huge gap, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party adjusts going forward.
All right, the news of the ceasefire deal, the possible return of all Israeli hostages, what's likely to be the reaction to that?
Yeah, I think Americans are really going to like it. And why do I say that? Because just look at the polling. A permanent Israeli-Hamas ceasefire, that is negotiating one. Highly important. That is extremely or very important, 51% of Americans. And then you see somewhat important, 31%. Over 80.
The new Hasbara talking point is that the pro-Palestinian movement delayed the ceasefire for a year. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, it was all of the... It was all the sympathetic voices that were actually getting more Americans on board with Israel's cruelty that made Israel, that forced Israel's hand to being even more cruel to the Palestinians. Classic. A new Isaac Chodener has hit the timeline. Why Hamas agreed to release the hostages and why it might not matter much for Gaza's future or for Palestinian statehood. Who is this interview with? An interview by Isaac Chodener for who? Bro, why are your haters so hungry? Like, damn, I've never seen you talk about any of the guys that make daily videos about you. There is a concerted effort in trying to undermine what I do and what I seek to do, and they will stop at nothing. And it's also beneficial. People make money off of it. It is what it is. You just gotta keep pushing. You just have to keep putting your head down and doing what you've been doing. There's not really much else you can do. It's incredible that there was a faucet of people just like tuning in while we're in the process of talking about a person who was just recently held captive by the Israeli state to be like, dude, you're abusing your dog. And then simultaneously asking like not even knowing what my dog's name is, not even caring about the dog at all. It's just more so about, wait, is this even an interview? Who is this Q&A with? I don't understand. Late night, I spoke with the phone with Khalid El-Gindi, visiting scholar at Georgetown University Center for Contemporary Arab Studies, an expert on the Middle East, but the contours of the deal and what will come next. El-Gindi is also the author of the book Blind Spot, America and the Palestinians, From Balfour to Trump. Yeah, the new Hasbara talking point was the silence from the ceasefire now crowd is deafening. That's what they're saying, which is crazy because, like, while there are people who have, like, I've seen some people talk about how, like, oh, this is the end of the resistance, like, how dare they, or some shit. I'm not one of those people, and many people are not those people at all. Like, many in the pro-Palestinian crowd have obviously been excited, elated at the prospect. Like, how can you not feel a sense of joy when you see Palestinians out in the streets celebrating what they perceive to be a permanent end to this genocide, right? I'm obviously still skeptical about whether or not this ceasefire will hold. Having said that, however, of course I'm going to celebrate the ceasefire. I don't understand why these guys are trying to push this notion that, like, people who have been demanding a ceasefire are actually now saying, oh no, we wanted this to continue. We wanted it to continue. It's ridiculous. And I think it just like showcases how cynical they are. Notice the near identical wording, bots. No, these are people who behave like bots. Israel does have a deep well of finances to apply in this direction. And it is very clear. It is very clear that they are, I mean, they're doing a horrible job at it, but they're still trying. Some telling Israeli analysis that makes it clear that they don't see this as much of a ceasefire, but rather a tactical pause through which to secure the release of hostages before retaining control of most of Gaza and implementing the Lebanon model of continued bombings. This is from Amit Segal saying, my initial thoughts on the deal, there's no phase 2. That's clear to everyone, right? Phase 2 might happen someday, but it's unrelated to what has just been signed. The deal signed now is a hostage release deal. It doesn't imply anything about the future. Theoretically, fantasies can come true. Emiratis and allies dismantling tunnels, an international body formed, Tony Blair governing Gaza. All this could happen in theory, but it's not a part of the current tactical negotiations. What we have now is a hostage deal and a ceasefire while talks continue in good faith. There's the question, of course, who decides if talks are happening in good faith? Under Trump, Israel has previously said talks aren't genuine or productive and resumed fighting. But this time, I don't think we'll see IDF tanks rushing back into Gaza like what happened when the last 2 ceasefires ended. The big question is, are we moving towards the Lebanese model Israel mentioned? In other words, the IDF stays beyond the international border and strikes targets from the air when it detects buildups or threats. This is Netanyahu's mouthpiece irrelevant? No. I think that's precisely the reason why he is relevant. Yes. No, that is why this is more relevant in understanding what, like, Netanyahu's position, understanding what, like, the next steps that Netanyahu might take. Okay? Attempts to harm Israel are obvious, but what we're talking about is buildup efforts like digging more tunnels or building more arms-producing lathes. This is what Israel is aiming for. The reasonable assumption in Jerusalem is that President Trump will approve it. That's one point. The IDF will withdraw to the 53% line. It was 57% initially and dropped to 53% when the hostages will be freed. The talks afterward are based on the principle of Israeli withdrawal and dismantling. Of course, we all assume that Hamas won't disarm willingly, and the Emiratis and the other international forces won't achieve this quickly either. Now, regarding the hostage issue, remember when I talked about this, by the way? I brought this up yesterday. There will be 2 things that Israel could use potentially to not abide by a full-blown withdrawal or not abide by a permanent ceasefire. And those 2 things are, number 1, disarmament, complete disarmament. They'll say, oh, they haven't done a complete disarmament. And number 2, they'll claim that Hamas is incapable of bringing all of the dead hostages that they took and recover their bodies. And those are the 2 avenues that I think Israel could potentially use to just basically continue Gaza and ruin the ceasefire conditions, and then have America play ball and act as though Hamas is the real spoiler here. So that's something to consider. I do think that the same motivation for keeping the journalists out and the same motivation for not abiding by a real ceasefire initially all the way back in January still remains. And that, of course, is that if Israel allows the dust to settle and you have international human rights organizations, Western journalists flood Gaza, okay? If that were to happen, then Israel's true cruelty would be impossible to avoid. Okay, what is this? CNN and Fox News Nightmare just dropped. This guy really wants me to condemn Pakistan, and I don't know why. Condemn Pakistan, sir. Condemn Pakistan, sir. Please condemn Pakistan, sir, is what they keep saying in the chat. Oh, by the way, while I was conducting my interview with David Adler, Trump's handpicked U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan indicted another one of Trump's political enemies, this time Letitia James. This guy says, don't abuse your dog, please, or I'm going to kill you. First of all, thank you for being kind and saying please. Secondly, I guess there is no reason for you to kill me because I don't abuse my dog. So I'm sure this was I'm sure if you were allowed to speak right now, you would say, oh, my mistake. Sorry about that. Also, speaking of the Pam Bondi conversation, the Wall Street Journal did actually report, that Trump was trying to message Pam Bondi privately. that weird Truth Social message that Trump sent out that looked like a DM? Yeah, and everybody was yelling at me when I said this looks like a DM. People were like, the trumpets in the chat, the maggots were like, you're so stupid, dude. Obviously, Trump would not DM someone like that. It turns out sevgili Hasan, köpeğini şoklayan bir orospu çocuğu olmak nasıl bir şoklayan orospu çocuğu? Türkler, oğlum bu kadar salak olamazsınız değil mi? Gerçi şaşırmıyorum. Gerçekten bu kadar salaksanız inanamıyorum yani. Hani İngilizce konuşmayı pek anlamıyorsunuz belki ama ben gösterdim yani. Bunun doğru olmadığını. İnanılmaz. Anyway, Obama made a statement on Gaza as well. He says, after 2 years of unimaginable loss and suffering for Israeli families and the people of Gaza. Oh my God. Beyaz Kurt diye milliyetçi bir YouTuber video yaptı hakkında. Orada Beyaz Kurt. CCC. It turns out there's a nationalist, ultra-nationalist Turkish YouTuber who made a video as well. I like that the International Fascist Consortium is up my asshole at any given moment, which is not limited to Americans. It turns out there's like Turkish ultra-nationalists and fascists as well that are running amok, you know? Chris Hayes, the new reporting from the Wall Street Journal tonight, that message that Trump posted to Pam Bondi online was meant to be basically a DM that he accidentally posted publicly. Pam was surprised to learn that it was public. Bondi, upset, called the White House aides. It turns out Trump is that stupid, by the way. It turns out Trump is actually that stupid.
New reporting at the Wall Street Journal tonight that message that Trump posted to Pam Bondi online was meant to be basically a DM that he accidentally posted publicly. He meant to send a private message urging her prosecution of FBI Director James Comey and his other favorite targets. We can't.
I like that people are so unrestrained with their racism. Like there was a chatter that said, speaks like a terrorist in English and speaks even more like a terrorist in Turkish. Cool, man. Speaks like a terrorist in English and sounds even more like a terrorist when speaking sand people. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck. Sand people is insane. Brother, it's not. It's not. Very, very, very common thing that I have been hearing a lot more, as a matter of fact, since October 7. They brought back the OG. They're trying to farm a Hasan crashes out at his chat clip. Don't fall for it. No, I'm not falling for it. I haven't been, at least. But I know. Yeah, sand people is better than the other option, which is, yeah, the N-word. Sand N-word is what I hear as well. Who signs their text messages with President DJT? Turns out, President DJT does that.
Delaying no longer, it's killing a reputation. He believed he had sent Bondi the message directly, addressing it to Pam, was surprised to learn it was public. Bondi grew upset, called the White House aides. Trump, who then agreed to send a second post praising her as doing a great job. 5 days after the Saturday evening message, Comey was indicted. It strikes me that that's materially irrelevant to the filings that Pat Fitzgerald's going to make on Comey's behalf, Joyce.
I do think it's fucking awesome that this administration is so unimaginably incompetent that they are basically giving the courts, they're giving any kind of legal counsel, any kind of defense attorney, the biggest layups of all time, okay? Because this is so clearly biased, directional, like completely unacceptable. It's just like any defense attorney that's like remotely competent could just look at that and be like, do you see this? Look at this. The fucking president is demanding, after firing the previous prosecutor for not finding enough indictable evidence for his political enemies, has now gotten this new attorney general to forcibly indict his political enemies. It is so clear cut. It is so transparent. Anyway, let's see what Obama had to say about Palestine now that the GOAT, Donald John Trump, actually facilitated a ceasefire that the Biden administration never could. After 2 years of unimaginable loss and suffering for Israeli families and the people of Gaza, we should all be encouraged and relieved that an end to the conflict is within sight, that those hostages still being held will be reunited with their families, and that vital aid can start reaching those inside of Gaza whose lives have been shattered. More than that, though, it now falls on the Israelis and Palestinians, with the support of the U.S. and the entire world community, to begin the hard task of rebuilding Gaza and commit to a process that, by recognizing the common humanity and basic rights of both peoples can achieve a lasting peace. Incredible stuff. Wait, what? Finnish journalist arrested after asking Finnish President Stubb about Israeli arms deals?
Is it appropriate for Finland to continue arms purchases from Israel, a country that has been accused of genocide by the UN and ICJ? Do you have a comment, Mr. President? No comment. That's our president, ladies and gentlemen.
I wasn't protesting. Police said I couldn't do that. What was it then? What the fuck? Hey, yo. What the fuck is going on in Finland, bro? Yeah. Where is Ursula von der Leyen to be like, in Russia, you would get arrested for that while he's in the process of being arrested. Be careful. Why are you surprised this is happening everywhere? Honestly, the reason, I'm not that surprised. This is like an international issue, okay? Well, I wouldn't say it's an international issue, but it's certainly an issue in like Western liberal democracies, okay? For sure. It has gotten significantly worse. And I think not only has it gotten significantly worse, but people seemingly do not see this as a major crisis. Like a lot of people are oblivious to it. The camera got away despite being threatened with arrest. Thomas, our journalist, went to jail. He now faces a charge of disobeying the police.
President Stu.
That is crazy. Elsewhere, journalists are already in prison or being executed. No, I mean, that happens all the time. It's completely unacceptable, but like that is ridiculous cope to say like, oh, well, at least he's not being killed. Like, do you understand that we've lost everything? Like liberalism has completely and utterly failed if you are saying that in countries where this kind of backsliding is supposed to be met with tremendous force and tremendous resistance and tremendous discontent are now basically saying, well, it is what it is. In other countries, people get shot and killed. That means it's over. Like this is a real danger. And obviously, everyone here is very familiar with the protests that have taken place in Germany, where the German police are just like beating the fuck out of people. Like I've never seen a more Americanized police force, dude. It's pretty crazy. It makes me feel very sad and somewhat scared when I see these images. I see these images of fascism coming from, historic fascist countries. Speaking of Germany and also its endless support for fascist movements and fascist mobilization, Germany is expected to lift its arms embargo on Israel following the ceasefire agreement. Oh, thank God. Thank God. I hope that the mass mobilization of the police and mass state-mandated suppression and repression will wake people up, wake more and more people up to the realities that this is completely unacceptable, that our voices must be heard, because if we don't do it now, this is the most peaceful time and the most peaceful methods of change. Okay? These are the most peaceful ways that we can actually enact some sort of change and turn around before it's too late, even though sometimes I do feel like it is too late. Hakeem Jeffries released a statement on Middle East peace agreement. The peace agreement that has been reached is extremely welcome development, freeing the remaining hostages and bringing an end to years of pain, suffering, and destruction. It is my hope that phase 1 will be fully implemented, the hostages reunited with loved ones, sustained humanitarian relief surge into Gaza, Hamas completely disarmed, and the path toward a just and lasting peace in the region firmly established. The world will be a better place with a safe and secure Israel living side by side in peace and prosperity with the Palestinian people, able to achieve the dignity and self-determination they deserve. We must all recommit to achieve that outcome. I mean, this seems like a blanket bot-ass statement. Obviously, not even a fraction of the criticism for Israel for conducting a genocide over the past 2 years, but that is expected. He is an AIPAC stooge. But what's actually somewhat shocking is that, like, for all intents and purposes, power, even though he was obviously, as every president is expected to be, very pro-Israel, he did do a bunch of stuff that enforced American sovereignty or American decisions over what the Israelis wanted, right? That is true. Like the JCPOA is a great example of this. Israel did not want that to happen. Obama still secured it, and Israel never let that go and punished him quite a bit. But what's fucking crazy is that now that Barack Obama is no longer the president, when he should be completely unrestrained in the way that he speaks about Israel, he's gotten seemingly worse. I know a lot of people talk about the $30 billion package that Obama gave on the way out to Israel, and that is, once again, expected. But it is fucking crazy how little this, talks about the humanity and dignity of Palestinians. Israelis have families, says Zachary Foster, but Palestinians apparently don't. Israelis are named Israelis, but Palestinians are just people. It's apparently a conflict, not an occupation, siege, or genocide. Israeli soldiers enforcing a murderous siege on Gaza are apparently hostages, not prisoners of war. Both sides being the perpetrators and victims of a genocide. You are toxic, Mr. Obama, one of the greatest disappointments of our generation. Like, this guy sat at a table with Edward Said and Rashid Khalidi, okay? That is fucking crazy to me. That is crazy. It's not as big of a complete 180 as, like, Maoist Van Jones talking about how 54 years of occupation, of course, is going to bear fruits of resistance, right? Because that's what he was doing 54 years into Israel's occupation. That's what Van Jones was saying. And now he's running around going to Zionist parties at the DNC. And one of the 16 members of the media and academics that are supposed to be training people to be more pro-Israel in the appropriate ways. But, these are the photos of Obama at a Palestinian community dinner in Chicago, seated at a table with Edward Said, Ali Abu Nima. I didn't know Ali was there, too. Electronic Intifada's very own Ali Abu Nima and Rashid Khalidi. The latter have both attested to his betrayal and how Obama used to always attend events in their community. In 1999, Abu Nima introduced him at a fundraiser for a community center in Dahisha refugee camp in the West Bank. Imagine that. He used to be that comfortable speaking up for and being associated with Palestinians. While teaching at the University of Chicago, Khalidi lived in Hyde Park close to the Obamas. They became close friends and would have dinner together. They even held a fundraiser for Obama. Wow. He is the great disappointment. He really is. I mean, all of this was just aesthetics for him, which I'm not even so certain how you could get this is seen as, if you have grander ambitions of like becoming the president, for example, that's actually putting your chances on the line pretty much, right? You're actually putting yourself in harm's way to a certain degree, or your chances of winning the presidency when you associate that much and that openly with Palestinians. It's still very evil, but it is shocking, very shocking. Israel's America's most crucial colonial outpost. I really don't understand how people can't seem to comprehend what the presidency means. It's like what Tariq Ali once said of Obama: when you don Caesar's robes, you have to behave like Caesar. You assume that role, and you assume the role of upholding the vast array of mechanized violence. You have a responsibility to consolidate that imperial apparatus. Kamala, Biden, or Trump, or even Bernie Sanders. If it's not the genocide and massacring of people in one place, it'll be the massacring of people elsewhere. The leak of the actual agreement, by the way, oh wow, they fucking leaked it. That's crazy. It's like the fact that now 6 consecutive American presidents have bombed Iraq as if that's their rite of passage, or Yemen. Trump famously only got respect in liberal media when he initiated airstrikes in Syria. They lauded him for finally looking / being presidential. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that moment when every single liberal media anchor was like, look at the glories of our weapons being put to good use, bombing Syria. When Trump did that, they said, this is the moment that he became president. Man, the beauties of our Hellfire missiles. Channel 12 publishes a picture of the document that was signed by all parties. Point 2 clarifies that the war will immediately end upon the approval of the Israeli government, which I presume would be after the conclusion of tonight's meetings. It raises a lot of questions, notably what happens after the 72-hour period. Yeah, I think we will see. In the end of the 72-hour period, when all of the hostages have, the prisoners of war have been released, we will see if Israel is going to continue its bombing campaign and fuck up the permanence of the ceasefire, or We will see if they abide by this, and we'll see if America is actually holding them to account. Do you think Israel will purposely screw up the deal by not releasing Barghouti like agreed? Israel has said that they are not agreeing to releasing Marwan Barghouti, by the way, which is interesting because if you truly want to dismantle the influence of Hamas, you would be totally on board with releasing Marwan Barghouti, except because Marwan Barghouti is not Hamas. And not only is he not Hamas, but he's also a figure that is much more popular than Hamas is. The problem here, of course, is that Israel does not want a uniting figure such as Marwan Barghouti, because their goal here is very obvious. It's not the dismantling of Hamas or removing Hamas from power. It is specifically, and it's certainly not moving in the direction of two states either, by the way, because Marwan Barghouti is a two-stater. It is specifically designed to destroy any kind of unification initiative. It is specifically designed to put hurdles in the direction of statehood and sovereignty for the Palestinians. Yeah, Barghouti is a two-stater and moderate compared to the alternatives like Ahmed Sadat, who's a communist and doesn't believe in the two-state solution. Refusing to release Marwan Barghouti, who embraces nonviolence and a two-state solution, is blindingly clear evidence that the Israeli government, despite their protestations, genuinely prefers Hamas in power if there must be Palestinians at all. If you are not pushing for Barghouti's release, you do not want an end to the conflict. You want a permanent war and occupation. Now, what's interesting about this, of course, is that Hamas itself is so openly committed to emancipation as the higher purpose here, rather than clawing back their grip on power over the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, that they are the ones who have actively tried to get Marwan Barghouti, a much more popular figure, to be released, right? Because as you can see here, according to the PCPSR poll from the 26th of May to the June 2024, and this is the most comprehensive polling on Palestinian attitudes, right? You have obviously Abbas with the lowest approval. Mahmoud Abbas is basically seen as like the second least popular figure in the region in the eyes of the Palestinians, closely after Israel, obviously. But Marwan Barghouti is even more popular than Ismail Haniyeh at the time, before he was assassinated. And Marwan Barghouti himself is also a Fatah person as well. And if he was released, and if he were to sit on top of the, if he was to be released, and there was like any sort of like democratic, any sort of democracy to take place, he would be seen as a uniting figure for both the Gaza Strip and also the West Bank as well, and would most likely be able to bring Fatah back as like a political movement and a party that is not seen as firmly committed to what do you call it? Israel's security ambitions.
To disagree with the Israeli and US governments on when it comes to Palestine is that the Palestinians
Here is Mehdi Hasan talking about Marwan Barghouti on Zateo.
do have awful leadership.
He's also very much a lib.
I mean, President Mahmoud Abbas is 89 years old, and his original 4-year presidential term ran out 15 years ago. Abbas presides over a deeply corrupt administration and leads security forces that basically do Israel's bidding. According to a poll taken last June, about 90% of Palestinians want Abbas to step down. But who'd replace him? If only Palestinians could find a unifying, younger leader with charisma, credibility.
Come on, man, don't do Mehdi dirty. No, I love Mehdi Hasan. I talk to him all the time. I really respect him. I think that he is an incredibly important figure in media. I do not attack him as much as like some of the other Palestinian activists do. I do not criticize him nearly as much as other pro-Palestinian activists do. I'm just, giving you a forewarning that he has a more tempered approach, and I think he is anyway. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Support and the ability to negotiate peace with Israel and end the illegal occupation. Oh wait, they don't have to find him. We know where he is and where he has been for nearly 23 years now, Israel's Megiddo prison. Yes, he's the man The Economist magazine describes as the world's most important prisoner, who The Guardian describes as the most popular Palestinian leader alive, and who multiple writers and commentators have referred to as the Palestinian Mandela. Marwan Barghouti is his name. He's the 65-year-old former leader of Tanzania.
This dude is getting more dangerous every stream he does. Is this the ICE protesters need to be shot take that he had? I'm surprised that liberals, like Twitter liberals, are finally starting to realize that, Asmongold is a right-wing operative. It's surprising.
A Palestinian militant organization and an offshoot of the Fatah party that President Abbas also belongs to. And Marwan Barghouti is currently serving 5 consecutive life sentences behind bars in Israel for murder. Now, you might be wondering, how can you compare a conviction?
Oh, the prop is missing. How weird. I don't appreciate that these people who are supposedly pro animal safety and security are calling my dog a prop. You're basically giving the game away that you don't actually give a fuck about anything. You're just in here to talk shit. Okay? Because what I don't understand is Kaya gets to walk freely in and around the house. If you look at my stream, there are certain moments where I don't want her to obviously lay on the ground, as I've described many times over. But she gets to free roam. And when she's sleeping, at least in the room, I want her to sleep on the cot. The reason for why I want her to sleep on the cot is because I don't want her to actually hurt her joints. Okay? Because, as you have seen, don't acknowledge these freaks. You're covering way more important stuff. That's true. They want to get you where it hurts, the bastards, for sure. Your haters make you look like an absolute saint, bro. Did you never do anything wrong in life? Why do they keep making these BS stories about you? It is what it is. Thank you. How did you perfectly have her come back to the frame while talking? Yeah, I did move my arm as well. Did you guys notice? I moved my arm and then she moved over there. I must have shocked her, electrocuted her again. Watch out. Or maybe what I was pressing, a button that I do have on my table, the only button that I have on my table, actually, is opening the door so my food delivery comes in. But notice how you can actually make insane theories off of that with unfortunate timing. Guy, watch out. Kind of funny you have hogs around again. Yeah, I was excited. I was excited for the hogs to come back. But I realized that maybe I spoke too soon. Because a lot of these guys are not the types of hogs that I like, who come in here and they're like, I love Donald Trump. You're a piece of shit for hating on him. Because those guys make for good content, you know? These aren't hogs. What do you think they are then if they're not hogs? Where's my fucking... Totally joking, but what if she accidentally nicked her claw again, getting up just then? Totally happenstance, but you would be Jover? Oh my God, I know. That is something that I've thought about. I do legitimately think that, like, if Kaya were to accidentally, like, clip her fucking claw or some shit again, oh my God, I'd be so cooked. I think they would just, like, come to my house and kill me. Which they think would be much better for Kaya's future, killing her dad. Anyway.
Murderer to Nelson Mandela. How can he be the leader? And I'll come to those murder convictions in a moment. But let's just start with this. In that poll I mentioned from last summer, in which 90% of Palestinians said they wanted to see the back of President Abbas, a majority also said they wanted the imprisoned Barghouti as their elected leader. Being popular and being in prison, by the way, isn't the only thing Barghouti has in common with the late Nelson Mandela. Like him, Barghouti has spent decades working towards uniting his people under one banner, even agreeing to a two-state solution in order to end the occupation and the conflict with Israel. As an analysis by Al Jazeera last year noted, it may well be Barghouti's commitment to a two-state solution that presents the most significant threat to an Israeli government seemingly determined to backtrack upon the agreements it undertook in Oslo in the 1990s. That commitment comes despite Barghouti being subjected to Israeli violence and terror for most of his life. And yet, in 1996, that same Barghouti was leading a pro-peace march alongside Israeli peace activists and denouncing a string of suicide bombings inside of Israel by Hamas. To be clear, Barghouti isn't a pacifist and has never claimed to be one. In the Second Intifada, he did lead a militant group in the fight against Israel, Tanzim. As he wrote in the Washington Post in 2002, during that Second Intifada, while I and the Fatah movement to which I belong strongly oppose attacks and the targeting of civilians inside Israel, our future neighbor, I reserve the right to protect myself, to resist the Israeli occupation of my country, and to fight for my freedom. While Barghouti is seen as a hero by many Palestinians, he's seen as a terrorist by most Israelis and was convicted of multiple murders in an Israeli court. But the murder convictions, on the face of it, are bad. On the face of it, that is, because there are so many things wrong with the conviction and with the imprisonment of Marwan Barghouti, so many red flags that suggest his imprisonment by Israel may very well have been about taking him out of the political arena and eliminating the chance of having that elusive partner for peace. In August of 2001, for example, he narrowly escaped an assassination attempt on the Fatah party headquarters that, according to Israel, he was not the target of, which I would say is red flag number one. They were already trying to kill him long before they'd convicted him. Then, in April of 2002, he was captured by Israeli forces in Ramallah, where he was kept incommunicado for a month. Red flag number two. During his interrogation, Barghouti has said several methods of torture were used against him, including sleep deprivation, hours spent sitting in painful positions on a chair with nails protruding from its back, and even false information leaks that claimed he confessed to the crimes he's accused of and that they implicate the former Palestinian president Yasser Arafat too. That's red flag number three. After his arrest, Israel decided to hold Barghouti's trial in Tel Aviv. Red flag number four, and here's why that's a huge red flag, because he was arrested in the occupied West Bank, but tried in Tel Aviv, inside occupier Israel. And yet, according to Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, individual or mass forcible transfers, as well as deportations of protected persons from occupied territory to the territory of the occupying power or to that of any other country, occupied or not, are prohibited, regardless of their motive. But Mehdi, why didn't they use that argument for his defense? Oh, but they did. Barghouti presented 5 different arguments as to why he should not be tried in an Israeli court. Number 1, the unlawful abduction from his home in Ramallah. Number 2, his illegal transfer to Israel. Number 3, the ability for the Palestinian government to try its own citizens, according to the Oslo Accords. Number 4, that he should enjoy prisoner of war status pursuant to the Third Geneva Convention. And finally, number 5, the violation of his parliamentary immunity deriving from his status as an elected member of the Palestinian Legislative Council. All 5 objections, surprise, were rejected by the Israeli judge. Red flags number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Barghouti, by the way, was accused of being involved in 37 attacks or attempted attacks on Israel between December 2000 and April 2002, the period often referred to as the Second Intifada, which is Arabic for shaking off. His speeches in court were far from those of a violent criminal, though, who funds or recruits terrorists. Nor were they Hamas-style calls for the end, for the destruction of Israel either. Here's one of those speeches from the courtroom.
You know, everybody in this world knows that Marwan Barghouti is fighting for peace. I am a peace man. I was trying to do everything for the peace between the two peoples. I do believe that the best solution for the two peoples, 2 states, for the 2 peoples, there is no any solution except this solution.
But it never mattered what Barghouti said in court, nor what defense he presented, because his verdict was decided before the trial even began. He knew it, which is why he was silent for the majority of the trial and refused to recognize the authority of Israel's courts. In his first appearance in court, for example, Barghouti described himself as a fighter for peace for both peoples, but was then interrupted by Judge Sarah Zarota, the presiding judge in his case, who said, quote, "One who fights for peace doesn't turn people into bombs and kill children." Red flag number 10, folks. Look, I'm no lawyer, but that sounds like a pretty outrageous thing to say to the man whose trial you're presiding over and who hasn't yet been convicted of any crimes. Super impartial judge there. Marwan Barghouti did not get a fair trial. Don't take my word for it. An observer sent to his 2004 trial in Israel by the Governing Council of the Interparliamentary Union said in his official report, quote, "The numerous breaches of international law recalled in this report make it impossible to conclude that Mr. Barghouti was given a fair trial." In fact, during the proceedings, around 100 witnesses were called to testify against Barghouti, but only 21 of them were actually in a position to testify directly regarding his role in the alleged attacks. That's red flag number 11. Of those 21 witnesses, and get ready for this, none of them actually accused him of being involved in the attacks. Another red flag. And 12 of them explicitly told the court he was not involved. Red flag number 13. Again, I'm no lawyer, but that sounds like he was innocent, not guilty. When the dust settled, Barghouti was acquitted of 21 counts of murder in 33 attacks by the court due to a lack of evidence. Red flag number 14. But nevertheless, they managed to convict him on 5 separate counts of murder, and he was handed 5 life sentences in Israeli prison. Will he ever get out? In the past, some Israeli peace advocates have suggested a pardon for Barghouti. But listen to this. In the wake of October the 7th, Hamas added Marwan Barghouti's release to its terms for a Gaza ceasefire deal with Israel. And yet, last May, Middle East Eye reported that senior officials in the Palestinian Authority, not just the Israeli government, the PA, insisted Barghouti not be released from Israeli prison, not be part of the ceasefire negotiations because they believe, wait for it, quote, Barghouti's release would threaten the leadership of PA President Mahmoud Abbas. The PA apparently said to Israel, keep him, we don't want him back. Now, they've since denied those reports, but it is obvious that Barghouti threatens Abbas's decrepit, weak, and corrupt leadership, and also threatens Israel's far-right, pro-occupation and anti-peace government. This
is why I say, regardless of the tactics being used, regardless of what Hamas has done, regardless of their domestic affairs, they are, unlike the PA, Hamas is placing Palestinian sovereignty at a higher priority, because if they were as corrupt and as invested in simply presenting themselves as like the only power players in Gaza, they would never demand the release of Marwan Barghouti. They would do the same thing that the PA is doing. They'd be perfectly fine with Marwan Barghouti staying in prison because Marwan actually threatens Hamas's grip on power. That's it.
October the 7th, he's been held in solitary confinement in conditions that even one Israeli human rights group has described as torture. Barghouti's family and Palestinian human rights groups say he's been repeatedly assaulted by Israeli prison guards, which the Israeli authorities, of course, deny. And so, with each passing day, with each stretch in solitary confinement, and with each human rights infringement, the chances of Marwan Barghouti ever getting out of prison and leading his people in a peace process with Israel continue to decline. Palestine's Mandela has not yet had his long walk to freedom, and nor, of course, had the Palestinian people.
People say he's the Palestinian Mandela, but it's actually, given that the Israeli apartheid is worse than the South African one, and this is not my assessment, this is the assessment of people who actually successfully fought and ended the South African apartheid, ironically enough, including, but not limited to, Nelson fucking Mandela. Because the circumstances are far worse, and the conflict and the apartheid regime has gone on for much longer than the South African one, the person that we're talking about, Marwan Barghouti, as a matter of fact, is actually significantly more conciliatory to Israeli sovereignty than Nelson Mandela was to the apartheid regime. Nelson Mandela was placed in prison for going and training with the FLN in Algeria so that his forces could mobilize and engage in acts of direct violence. Nelson Mandela refused to condemn violence. And it's interesting because while Nelson Mandela refused to condemn violence when he was imprisoned, Marwan Barghouti always had a pro-peace, no fucking violent resistance against the Israeli apartheid position. And yet he has still been imprisoned with 5 consecutive life sentences because Israel does not want any Palestinian sovereignty or statehood whatsoever. It goes against their Eretz Israel project. Their Greater Israel project is the higher priority. So figures like Marwan Barghouti are seen as a hurdle against the implementation of a Greater Israel project. Now let's take a look at what our Nazi government is doing.
Going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be, but we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to try and get over there, and we're working on the timing, the exact timing. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me. And the amazing thing is all of the countries over there, from Qatar to Saudi Arabia to UAE to all of them, I mean, the rich ones, the less than rich ones, they've all come together, something which is amazing, actually. They've all come together for this, and they're really probably the best relationships they've ever had. So it's been really something.
Considering to speak at the Knesset, at the Israeli parliament.
Well, they asked me to speak at the Knesset, and I've agreed to. If they would like me to, I will do it. It's the first time a president has ever done that, so that makes it very interesting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I.
Uh-oh. Did I move weirdly? Did I move weirdly just now? I don't know. Because Kaya went back to her cot. Oh no. My hands are here, I promise. Oh my God. I saw your hand move slightly.
I will do it if they want me to. They have asked me to do that. Thank you.
I believe the hostages are out in the streets in Israel dancing and crying tears of joy.
They're all dancing in the streets. Right now they're dancing in the streets. They're so happy. Everybody's happy. They're dancing in the streets of Arab countries, Muslim countries. I've never seen anything like it. Everybody is happy. It's been really amazing. Thank you.
President Trump, on the international peacekeeping force that's going to deploy to Gaza soon, do you expect that Pakistan, Turkey, other countries to contribute forces? Has that become firmed up? And also on the shutdown, it seems like in the House there's a majority support for a temporary extension of the Obamacare subsidies, perhaps minus the funds for illegal immigrants. Is that how you see the deal to end the shutdown happening?
Well, I see the deal just getting extended as we continue to talk. But we're willing to pay because we're paying. It's very simple. We're paying. And the Democrats are the ones that cause this problem. And it's a big problem for them. And they have a lot of break in their ranks. But so I see that, I think that'll get worked out. But we want to get back before we do this. We don't want to have a gun held to our head. We don't like that. And the public doesn't like it either. So we want to get back. And I think it's going to work out. I think it's going to work out very well. It's something that shouldn't have happened. This was supposed to take place before the election. This was supposed to take place on September 28th before the election. We shouldn't even be talking about this right now. This is actually something that shouldn't have even happened. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, looking ahead, what guarantees Hamas disarms and that Israel doesn't resume bombing once the hostages are released?
The first thing we're doing is getting our hostages back, okay? And that's what people wanted more than anything else. They wanted these hostages back that have lived in hell like nobody has ever even dreamt possible. And after that, we'll see. But they've agreed to things, and I think it's going to move along pretty well.
But what is phase two? When does it begin?
I'm not going to talk about that because you sort of know what phase two is, but there will be disarming, there will be pullbacks, there will be a lot of things that are happening. I gave you a whole list of 22 different things that will take place. And I think it'll take place, and I think you're going to end up with peace in the Middle East. But we have to get our hostages back.
What do you mean our hostages, bro? What are you talking about? You're the president of the United States of America. Like there are no Americans remaining. I mean, I guess he's just embodied like the notion that Israel is the 51st state, I guess. Might as well. He's an empath. Yeah. Because like, if you're talking about our hostages, Israel had our hostages. Israel literally had American citizens. I just interviewed one today. And these guys did not even take the initiative to release them on purpose, mind you. They were like, yeah, let fucking God sort it out. Let Israel show you a lesson.
And we weren't going to do it at the end. We're going to do it at the beginning. We said we want them at the beginning. We're not doing it. You know, we got the hostages back. We did. As a group with Steve.
You know what? Fuck us on this community. I'll give my views and support of the clip channels. Wait, what's going on, man? Why are you so fucking mad? This community makes me feel like I don't belong. I'm done giving my support. Are you on cannabis right now? Is that what it is? Is it the ganja speaking? He might be just on the, he might be on the cannabis.
Steve and Jared and Marco and me and all of us, we got the hostages back. We got many of them back. Many, unfortunately, were dead. But we got many back that are now living with their families, with their parents in many cases, and with their husbands, families, wives. Many of them, they celebrate all over. They're the ones that are celebrating the loudest. They're all over. There were a lot of them that we got out. But the last 20, and I always said the last ones are going to be the most difficult, but it's been a very big deal getting the hostages out, but the rest is going to take place too.
And can you promise Palestinians they will be able to stay?
Well, they know exactly what we're doing. We're going to create something where people can live. You can't live right now in Gaza. The place is it's a horrible situation. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So yeah, we're going to create better conditions for people. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, excuse me, what kind of security guarantees is the United States going to make for Gaza?
Well, we're going to work with very wealthy countries that love people, frankly. I know them very well. They love people, but they love Arab people, and they love Muslims, and they love, I think right now they love everybody, and they're immensely wealthy, and they're going to be involved in putting up money, and for them, it's a small amount of money. For somebody else, it's a large amount of money. But, you know, these are the wealthiest countries in the world, and they'll be very much involved in making it as good as possible.
And what's your take now on a two-state solution, sir? Just to follow up on that. What is your view now on a
What's that? I don't know what that is. What are you? You're now just telling me there's two states? I thought there was only one state. This beautiful nation state of Israel. The beautiful nation state of Israel. There's not even an American state. Omaha, Nebraska, North Carolina, South Carolina. We should give them to Israel as well. That's the only state that I care about.
State solution for the...
I don't have a view. I'm going to go with what they agree to.
Mr. President, given that there are some tough provisions for Israel in this agreement, are you at all concerned that Bibi Netanyahu may not?
He said, I don't have a view on the two states. See, I'm telling you. He just straight up listens to the last handler. Like, this man does not retain information. Yesterday, they asked him, Mr. President, like, do you want to revoke habeas corpus when dealing with these, like, mass deportation initiatives? And he straight up was like, no, I don't. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Who? He said, who? What's that? I want... the Homeland Secretary, Kristi Noem, to answer that question. This man is incapable of fucking retaining information, okay? He doesn't need to retain anything when we're winning so hard, brother. That's true. I don't know habeas or corpus. I know Corpus Christi. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Continue in his post, he may be deposed.
The Bibi may go a little bit out of whack.
But he may no longer be prime minister.
Look, that's politics. It could be. I don't know. I think he's very popular right now. He's much more popular today than he was 5 days ago.
How you Americans allow this moron to be your president? I can't explain this to you, but just look at the internet. Look at the American internet, and you will immediately understand why motherfuckers voted for this man and still like this man. His approval rating is still at like 40%. Okay? Just look at the American internet. I think people are even dumber than this. I think we could straight up have an even worse and dumber president. And also, for the Europeans tuning in, this is your future. I hope you understand that. I have been warning about this for a decade now. Like, Europeans used to make jokes when Trump was president the last time, and I was like, brother, you don't know what is about to happen. If Americans want to see their future, we can look to Israel. Okay? Israel is America's near future. Europe's near future is the United States of America. And then, of course, Israel afterwards. Every country that is in the periphery, every country that is under the banner of Western imperialism is basically accelerating towards fascism, and the stupidest version of fascism too. Like, not only is it fascist and it's violent and it's brutal, it's oppressive, it's repressive, but it's also like this incredibly childish version. And I don't know if like previous iterations, when adjusted to their timeline, were also just as childish. I don't know that. I haven't studied like fascist movements that deeply to know if like people at the time were like, yo, this Hitler guy is gay as hell, you know? Maybe they were like, bro, this Hitler guy is being so childish. What the fuck is this? Maybe they were saying that, you know, at the time. But like this modern iteration of fascism is unimaginably childlike. It actually is alarming. I don't know if that version of like the OG version of fascism was also like this incompetent as well, and they just like basically strung it together somehow. Wait, what? Have you studied this in college? I did, but I mean, there's a limit to like my knowledge on the overall environment at the time, and like how they reflected on Hitler in his rise to power, how they reflected on Mussolini in his rise to power as like you know, this cartoonish figure that was first laughed at, who consistently got in his own way. Like, was it just as petty? Because I think this is an even dumber version of fascism. Like, they're not as organized. And the things that they care about are so stupid. Every time I hear Stephen Miller or Donald Trump or any of these fucking losers talk, I can't help but notice that in many circumstances, what they're actually complaining about is that they're just not liked. Like, it's a bunch of unfuckable losers who have not let go of their deep unpopularity in high school. It feels like they're not prosecuting in a grand fascist vision. They're not prosecuting a grand fascist vision, but instead they're prosecuting unpopularity, where they're just like, how dare you? How dare you not say how fucking cool I am? I feel like if you gave these guys culture, like even for a little bit, they would just like pipe down. All they want is to be admired. All they want is for people to both fear them and respect them at the same time, and want to demonstrate fealty, demonstrate loyalty, demonstrate reverence. That's what it feels like to me, where what they are trying to prosecute is how big of a fucking loser they are, and how they are not beloved by Hollywood and all these other cultural institutions, right? Where it's like, how dare you? I'm going to prosecute you for saying that like I'm bad. You can't say that I'm bad. I don't know where this goes, but it does feel like their vision is stunted. Their like broad fascist takeover plan is completely stunted by their immediate concerns with being liked. Nazi fascism was about control and domination. Modern Western fascism is about controlling politics so that billionaires can make more money. That's where it complicates, because they still need enough people happy to drive consumerism. You act like this is new. Both Hitler and Mussolini were scorned by what you would construe as the pop culture of their day. Lamau fascists are always cringe. Their incompetence might be new, though. Yeah, I guess maybe in the way that I approach Hitler, like when I think about what he did in terms of stamping out art, like dissent in art, it always felt as though they were trying to prosecute, like I believe them when they say they think this is degenerate, right? They want a streamlined approach. They want to go back to like a different artistic vision, a different aesthetic, right? And that's the reason why they were, tackling what they consider to be Jewish art, degenerate art, right? That's what they said. Whereas like this administration, on the other hand, is basically saying, why aren't you making art that makes me look hot and cool? Like there is no, sometimes they bring up the degeneracy, but it almost feels like the express purpose for why they want to stamp out dissent in every aspect is way less organized, where it's like the only art that's readily available that you can make is AI fan cams of me, Donald Trump, and I have to look hot. Like there is not even seemingly a higher purpose as to why they're like systematically trying to target culture, like the cultural output. Please finish the thought on how it's coming to Europe. I mean, Europe is already shaken by the same exact right-wing reactionary forces. If you look at every European liberal democracy, there are very illiberal elements now that are gaining prominence, gaining momentum. Reform in the UK, AfD in Germany, the nationalists in France, Geert Wilders. Like there are so many different figures. Maloney already is a proto-fascist or a fascist. So like they're just basically existing within the confines of international liberal order, but it won't take much for these guys to very openly say like, no, we're just a straightforward fascist governance now. OG fascists had an idea at least of what they should target. These people have no coherence in what they do. They're petulant children being enabled by oligarchs. Yeah. We're comparing the Nazis to Western politicians, not the Prussian absolutist nobles who are all highly educated. I think there's also something to be said about like there is a major difference with how organized the previous fascist movements were, and there was like a grand vision. I feel like these guys don't really have that, which I feel like is a good thing. But more importantly than that, there was also a very militant apparatus of counter messaging and people that were engaging in like paramilitary activities. Like the KPD was straight up popping Nazis. You know what I mean? And the Nazis and the Social Democrats sometimes and the liberals were also united against the socialists and the trade unionists and the communists, for the record, if we're talking about Germany. So like there isn't any sort of significant pushback in some ways because there is no real organized body that is actively trying to move the country in a different direction either.
Like right now, maybe people shouldn't run against him. 5 days ago, it might not have been a bad idea. No, Bibi's this has been a very good thing. I don't think he did it for that reason, okay? But I think just looking as an analyst would look at this, I think Bibi should be very popular right now. Yeah, please.
What will happen if Hamas says that it cannot locate or was not able to find all of the deceased hostages' bodies within the time
We'll
frame?
have to see. I think that's going to be, it's largely been answered. We know where most of them are. Actually, the bodies are a bigger problem because some of the bodies are going to be a little bit hard to find. It's a terrible thing to discuss even, but you understand, we're all people, we're grown-ups, we understand life. Nobody can understand this stuff because this could have taken place, but we have the hostages for the most part, and so I don't think it's going to be overly big. The situation with the bodies, they say 28. Some are going to be a little bit hard to find, but we're going to do it behind.
If they don't find them within the time frame.
Please.
Thank you, sir. Regarding Jared Kushner's role in the negotiations, can you explain a little bit about why he came on at the last minute? And then in regards to the WIC program that the Vice President mentioned, do you know when the funding that you promised through the tariff revenue will actually go through to communities? Because there's reports that WIC providers are actually starting to close down today.
Well, okay, let me just answer the Jared. So Jared's a very smart guy. He did the Abraham Accords. As some people say, the Abraham, which I love the way that sounds, but he did the Abraham Accords. It was a great thing. 4 big countries joined. If I were president, if the election would have been a correct election, which it wasn't, you'd have every country in there. Maybe even Iran would have been in there, frankly. But you'd have every country in. Now, by the way, that's going to be filled up rather quickly. People want to join the Abraham Accords. And I put Jared there because he's a very smart person, and he knows the region, knows the people, knows a lot of the players, and the combination of him and Steve Witkoff and Mark.
Nationalist Sanae Takaichi is said to be Japan's prime minister. This is a global shift, not just European or American. No, Japan is also within the security umbrella of the West. So when I talk about like Western liberal capitalist nations, I absolutely consider Japan to be a part of that as well. Come on, man. We wrote their constitution. We fucking caused irreparable harm to the Japanese collective consciousness. Countries that are under the nuclear umbrella of the West are abso-fucking-lutely experiencing the same shock and the move towards illiberalism, if you want to call it, post-liberalism, if you want to call it, or just like, as I like to say, reactionary fascist politics, you know? From the kennel to the tree. Oh, God. That's the only thing that I actually fucking hate about people making jokes about. Like, they're so very clearly fucking grossly bringing, like, the Palestinian plight into this. I don't know. Like, that's not a funny joke.
Marco and Cooper, who is, as I hear, has been fantastic, and others that were involved. JD was very much involved. I mean, we had a very smart group of people working. We had a lot of different players, different countries, and very diverse countries, very different from each other. They had certain things in common, but they had a lot of things, mostly things that were not at all common to their countries. So we had a very smart group of people. These are high IQ people. Okay, you know, I talk about how many low IQ people we have in our government. We got some real low ones, but some shockingly low. But these are very high IQ people, and that's what we want.
No, I didn't you use that as a blast off meme yesterday? No, I used a blast off meme today that's I think is also funny. I think the I'm zapping Kaya memes are funny. They're so stupid, even though some people genuinely believe it. I'm saying that when people also like compare it to, or people who are pro-Israel are fucking saying, also Trump talking about high IQ people is hilarious. Well, but, people who are saying like, oh, I'm mistreating Kaya or abusing Kaya because I'm a Muslim and that's how Muslims are, that's gross. Or people who fucking people who like make comparisons to Israel Palestine who are coming from like a very clear pro-Israel position. That's a little bit gross to me.
That was a long process as well, and in many respects has connected some of the ethnic studies questions, and you know both are subject to appropriation and support in the legislature in the next few years, and both are nuanced, and both have their supporters and their detractors. And both are works in progress. And, you know, I thought it important to sign that bill on the second anniversary of that terrorist act by Hamas on October 7th. By the way, let me applaud Jared Kushner and Witkoff and others for what appears to be a job well done on phase one of a peace deal agreement. Long overdue, and that's not, you know, there's no partisanship in this respect. We are here to promote peace. And just you know, address these lives torn asunder. So I thought it was appropriate to put it out on that date, but it's a work in progress, meaning we're setting up the standards for deal with hate, discrimination across the spectrum, and we have work to do to set up that off.